Hello and welcome. This is Matt McCormick, President of the Columbia Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to our weekly webinar series. Today we're going to be talking about mental wellness and team cohesiveness. And so we're excited about this program and appreciate everybody for attending. So we want to make sure everybody knows this program is being recorded and will be available on the Chamber's social media pages and on the Chamber's COVID-19 resource website located at columbiamochamber.com following the event. If you've not done so, please, as always, make sure that you mute your microphones so that our guests can be heard. And we will also, as always, take questions at the end of the event. So the meeting chat feature is up. So if you would like to ask a question as we go through, make sure that you put that in the meeting chat, and we'll get to those at the end of the webinar. Also, we'd like to know who all's here. So as you are coming on board, make sure that you put in your name and your company name or your organization name that in the meeting chat, so we all know who all is here with us today. So we're going to be discussing ways to improve mental wellness and team cohesiveness while working from home. With the current stay-at-home order in place, many of us have found that a normal workday doesn't quite look like what it did 30, 40 days ago. And so many of you and your staff may be finding it difficult to adjust to staying at home and distancing yourself from other people and places where you like to visit. Or maybe someone on your team or some of your team is feeling a bit left out or isolated from the team, from their fellow team members that they're used to being around for a majority of their day and that camaraderie that they have throughout the day. So joining us on our webinar today are two local experts who will be addressing all of these issues. And we're very excited about this. So here to talk about mental wellness today is Dr. Rasha El Kady, a psychiatrist at MU Healthcare, and also here to talk about team cohesiveness is Rae Lyon, with the Associate Director of the Missouri Training Institute. I'd like to thank you both for taking time out of your day to be on our webinar this morning. And real fast, just making sure Dr. El Kady and Rae are both on the line and you can hear?
Yes.
Wonderful.
I'm here.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. So again, want to make sure all of our folks that are attending, please make sure that your microphones are muted. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat feature and we'll get to those. Dr. El Kady, I'd like to begin with you this morning. Would you please talk to us about how we can improve our mental wellness, especially why we are social distancing ourselves from one another? So I'll turn this over to you.
Of course. Thank you, Matt. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank business owners in Columbia, employees, employers, for helping us flatten the curve. Whatever you guys are doing, you did an amazing job. Thank you very much. I understand that this is it was a surprise. It wasn't something that was planned, and there's a lot of losses regarding finances and stress and businesses. So I really appreciate you and thank you very much for saving our lives, basically. First of all, I'm going to share with you some advice, some tips on how to basically keep sane in all of this and make the best out of it, okay? I say the first thing is keep in mind that you are not alone in this. Everybody is suffering, even in their own way. I know that big businesses, they're suffering, small businesses, even employers, employees, everybody is suffering in their own way. In my job as a psychiatrist, I see events that are behind the scenes, and believe it or not, there are people that are suffering that looking at them from outside, you won't even think that they have financial burdens or problems, okay? But people are all in this together. Now, say the main thing that can ruin this for us or make it difficult for us to pass it is worry, is anxiety, okay? Now, anxiety is not all bad. We do need a level of anxiety. We do need a level of vigilance we work, we are responsible for our employees, we're responsible for our families. So you do need some level of worry. Keeping things clean, social distancing. So that is a healthy worry that we would like to keep, okay? Now, on the other hand, there is a pathological worry or a wrong worry. That can escalate fast, can be like the snowball effect, and can end up with either exacerbating issues that people already had, like anxiety or depression or bipolar disorder, or even ending up with new kinds of anxiety that you never suffered from before, like more of obsessive compulsive disorder, phobias, or even all the way to paranoia and psychosis, okay? So keep in mind that it's very easy to fall into the bad kind of anxiety, especially at this time. It is just a perfect setting for pathological anxiety, and it's a perfect setting for the snowball effect and things you getting worked up. Here are some tips that I believe that can be helpful in this situation. I've looked this up in journal articles from previous basically disasters that happened in the world. What helped people stay on track, like 9/11, like wars, things like that. So first of all, limit the news that you're getting, the social media that you're getting. Filter it. Try to have one reliable resource, and I've found it useful to choose whatever institute you belong to, or whatever like administration you belong to. They send daily emails or updates. Make that your main source of information. It is very easy to get anxious and worried by just watching the news and joining terrified Facebook groups. That will just make things worse, okay? The second tip, so in psychiatry, there's a term called cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortion basically means they are ways your mind makes you perceive reality inaccurately. And inaccurately in a negative way. It's never going to be positive. Okay, so reality is something, but then the way you perceive it is something completely different. Okay, for example,
distortion.
Okay, for example, there are a lot of examples of it. I'm going to briefly talk about some of them that can apply to the situation that we're going through. For example, mental filtering. That basically means that we or the person just looks at or just pays attention to the negative aspect of it. Like, for example, we're saying here, COVID-19 has a better recovery rate compared to a death rate. Nobody hears the better recovery rate part. We just focus on the death rate, okay? And that's a trick. Our brain is doing that. And the first step would be just notice it. And you would be surprised how many times we do this a day, okay? The second one is black or white thinking. Okay, we all fall into that as well, that things are either black or white, and there's no gray in the middle. This will make things very difficult for people. And that, if you get stuck on that, actually, it will cause a lot of anxiety for you. So thinking that there is gray in the middle, and it's not all what it says. You're either going to die from COVID-19 or no, you're going to be fine. There are a lot of in the middle case scenarios. Okay.
Dr. El Kady, this is Matt McCormick. I'm going to interrupt you for just a half a second here. We've got some people who have not muted their microphones and we're getting some feedback. So if you would, please take a moment, make sure that your microphone is muted so that we're not hearing other conversations or personal conversations or feedback. So please take a moment and mute those microphones. And sorry about the interruption, but Dr. El Kady, I'll turn it back over to you. Thanks.
No problem. Okay, so the third cognitive distortion that I will talk about is overgeneralization. Overgeneralization is basically picking one news or one event and then generalizing it for everything. Like, okay, this is the number of people who died in China. This is the number of people who died in Italy. So this is exactly what's going to happen here. I saw this woman that is the same age like myself. She has a similar risk factors. She died, so I will die. No, again, that's a cognitive distortion. So catch yourself when you're starting to think that way. Also, jumping into conclusions, that's very easy to fall into. For example, just like for example, catastrophizing the situation. Like I got tested. Okay, yeah, that happens a lot. Like we see that a lot in the hospital or situation. Somebody tested positive for COVID-19, and then we all start having symptoms. Like and people were not even people were taking precautions and everybody was being careful, washing their hands and staying 6 feet apart, but you just start having the cough, you start feeling that way, and you just jumped into a conclusion like, yeah, that person is positive for COVID-19, so I must have it as well. And then another cognitive distortion that is important at this time is personalization. Basically, taking everything and thinking it's meant for you, it's meant specifically, it's against you. And a lot of that can cause paranoia. It's like thinking that this is all a plot against my business, or it's all a plot against me specifically. The last cognitive distortion that I will talk about is the shoulds. Okay, so the statement should. I should have done this. I should have been stronger. I should have seen this coming before. I should have kept this person more safe. I should have. This is just a setting for more paranoia and more anxiety. Nothing beneficial is going to come out of these should statements at all. Now, there are many other cognitive distortions that we are aware of in psychiatry. I tried to pick the ones that are relevant to this situation, but you can feel free to even Google them if you type in cognitive distortions and ways to how to challenge them and deal with them. You're going to find a lot of resources just online. Okay. Now, another. So there was a study that I came across when I was looking this. So whoever, like business owners or workers who work normally outside their houses, they don't work from home, they are the ones that are going to have more struggles, and they're higher risk for struggling because this is a disruption in their routine, in their job, in their life. Okay. It can be a little bit easier for people who were already working from home or even part-time working from home. So they were prepared. They know what to do with this. Same applies to, in another study I found about physical exercise. So believe it or not, people who were more active before the COVID-19 and the stay-at-home orders, they will also suffer more from the stay-at-home order. Because they're used to their outdoor people, they're used to be outdoors and exposed to the sun and talk to people. So this will be more challenging for them as well. So the best way to deal with this in your job is create your own structure, create your own routine. Your routine basically has been ruined. It's been messed up because of the stay-at-home order and the adjustments that are happening. So make your own routine. some tips would be make yourself wake up at the same time every day, okay? Even if you're working, because meetings are more flexible now, interviews are more flexible, so you can have a meeting later in the day. Still wake up at the same time in the morning. Have a morning routine. I don't know, coffee, or maybe try to sit outside if the weather permits, so that you have the same structure every day. Same applies to go to bed at the same time every night. Again, this stay-at-home, working from home is making things very flexible. You can literally do an interview from bed, and nobody's gonna tell. But try to keep the bedroom just for sleep and for intimacy. That's it. Do not don't work from your bedroom. Just try to keep your brain trained that the bedroom is just for rest. Don't get your brain stimulated. Our body is made in a way that there's a circadian rhythm. We need the sunlight in the morning. We need to stay up in the morning or see some sunlight in the morning, and then at night we need to go to bed. Okay. Make an office space. I mean, it doesn't matter really if it's a real office space at home, if it's a small, even a desk, even a table, that this is your office space, so that again you have some routine there. It's very easy to take naps now to fall asleep from working from home in between meetings, or especially if you're working from bed. So try to, if you need a nap, make it scheduled and minimize it, and set an alarm. Like, a nap 30 minutes to an hour, that should be fine. But if you just, again, that will disturb your sleep and your alertness. It will disturb your circadian rhythm, which will make it worse. Now, as a psychiatrist, we really worry about sleep. Sleep is very important because, of course, we know it helps us function the next day, and it saves us from mistakes and dealing with patients. But another fear that we really worry about in psychiatry is that sleep deprivation precipitates any underlying psychiatric issues. So, for example, if somebody has bipolar disorder, when they don't sleep at night, they can have a manic episode. So that's why sleep is very important. So routine, especially in sleep, that's crucial. Okay. Now, try as much as you can to create a social life like the one that you have to. I know you can't meet people anymore. You can't go for runs with people anymore. Try as much as you can. If you can FaceTime them through lunch break, for example, or if you can FaceTime somebody while you're going on a walk, even if you're walking in front of each other, actually, and you can see each other, but you're keeping the social distance. Work around it. Another thing would be the diet, eating, and I'm not just talking about eating healthy. It's very easy to fall into bad eating habits during this time. You're sitting, if you're watching, if you're doing a meeting on Skype or Zoom, and you're not going to get food. I'll just grab an energy bar or something. It's very easy to fall in that, and that again, that causes a lot of negative effects on the brain and the body as well. So if whatever you were used to before the corona, if you were used to cooking, keep cooking, even if it's just for yourself. If you were used to grabbing food from outdoors, that's still available now. A lot of our local businesses are still open, and they do drive-throughs and curbside pickup. They're doing an amazing job. Like, every time I go with my family to get some food, I keep taking pictures. People are being very creative in the way they're making their customers feel safe, and the way they're serving their customers. Now, it's important that routine that I was talking about, apply that to your family as well. Try to have that, like have your spouse on board with this, as well as your kids, if you have that at home, if you have kids, if possible, even your pets. Believe it or not, this is affecting everybody. Now, keep in mind about children, because I'm also a child psychiatrist, and unfortunately I see a lot of deterioration of mental health in psychiatry at this point of the stay-at-home order and Corona. So as parents, we feel that we are providing our kids, we're supporting them, they have shelter, they're eating, they're drinking, and like that's drinking water, of course. So they're covered. They have nothing to worry about. And we feel that they are ungrateful or spoiled if they're complaining and they just want to be with their friends. Keep in mind that developmentally, their level of thinking is different than us. Even their brain, when you look at it with an MRI, it's different than us. It's not the same. So they're part of development. They need things that we don't care about. For example, teenagers, they gotta have their friends. Friends are very important for them at this point. Unfortunately, parents are not their main person anymore, as it used to be when they were younger. So keep that in mind. Allow them to maybe FaceTime friends, or kids are very creative. Allow them to do that. There are apps I've seen that kids can watch movies with their friends, but everybody at their home, so they can watch it as a group and comment on it and have fun. So, but of course, supervise it. We don't want them to get in trouble. Make that in the common area, like the living room or something. Don't have every kid sitting in their room with their electronic and doing their own thing without supervision. We don't want them to fall into dangerous habits as well. And then think of looking at the positives. That always helps. I mean, we have a lot of positives. First of all, this is not the zombie apocalypse like the shows and the movies you're watching. We can still go outside. We can still drive our cars. We can still go for a walk. So there is some positive part of all of this. And maybe, I mean, I have seen it in many of my patients, or many of the people I know. They actually made a positive experience out of it. Like people that didn't used to have a good schedule, not a good sleep hygiene, now they are working on it. They have a better one because they have a better motive, a better goal to get things back on track. People are eating healthier. People are spending more time with their families. They're getting to know their families more. Business owners and employers are getting to know their families more. Like, for example, I mean, in our hospital, when we have a scare about a positive corona patient or something, we get to know, like, I got to know my nurses, the kids that they have, their spouses, and I mean, I don't think we would have had this experience before the corona pandemic. So yeah, I will end because I think I'm away more than beyond my time, and just wanted to say thank you again. Thank you for all the business owners. Thank you, dental offices. Thank you, hair salons. Thank you, restaurants. Thank you. Thank you very much. You are amazing.
Dr. El Kady, thank you so much for your time and your input. And again, if somebody has questions, please put it in the chat. We'll get to those at the end. But we do appreciate your time and your insight. So now we're going to turn this over to Rae Lyon. Rae, talk to us a little bit about on the team side of things. We've talked a lot about your personal well-being with Dr. El Kady. Now let's talk about a little bit of the team side of things and the team cohesiveness. So Rae, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Can you hear me?
We've got you loud and clear.
Okay. The reason I ask is because my internet dropped me, so I have no screen right now. So I have no idea if Whitney has my slides up or not.
Yeah, it looks like they're up now.
Okay. I obviously know what I'm going to talk about, but I don't know what slide she has available. So first just thinking about, I'm going to be talking about a different type of stress, not the pathological that Dr. El Kady was talking about, but just kind of the normal stress that goes along with being a remote worker. So Whitney, if you want to go to the one that says stressors for remote workers, and just talking about like the number one reason, and I continue to hear this, is why people are stressed as remote workers. The number one reason I hear, believe it or not, is that they feel like they don't think their boss thinks they're working. And so they kind of have this undercurrent, constant worry that if they're not constantly in communication, constantly online and responding as quickly as possible, that they don't think their boss thinks they're working. The second thing I hear is that because of that isolation, and Dr. El Kady was talking about this, that they come to kind of have this belief that their colleagues don't like them because we don't get the benefit of just daily socialization and interaction. So I'm hearing those a lot from remote workers as I work through this with their teams. Moving on, just thinking about how do we promote team cohesiveness. So this would be number 5 slide, but basically my recommendation is you have to incorporate what we call this quiet connectivity. And typical conversations that would be happening in an office environment, maybe we've heard them referred to as the water cooler conversations, just the general chit chat. So I encourage, when you do come together, whether it's Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever, don't rush to the business. Make sure that you're spending time just checking in, talking about trivial stuff, the garden that they put in this weekend, or what's the funniest thing that's been going on with the kiddos around the house. So definitely spend time just building in that socialization before you launch into any type of content or technical or job related conversation. Another tip is scheduling what we call magic time. And that is just establishing across your team that there's 1 hour that we're going to protect. Everybody is available. And if we just need to check in with one another, let's have that hour be between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. And those circadian rhythms that Dr. El Kady was talking about, we tend to wind down a little bit in the afternoon. So maybe we use that time for just protected time and a way for us to connect if we need to. And the idea of protecting it is knowing then and setting the expectation that it's okay to chit chat during that time. It's okay to not be maybe producing an output, that we're going to use that for social interaction. And I really encourage those of you that are leading and managing these remote teams, resist the urge to fixate on productivity and really think about connection. The last point on this slide is, and I heard this from Dale Carnegie, consultant, and she said, during this period of stay at home and remote working, that no relationship will just maintain, that either it will get worse or it will get better. And I've been really encouraged with the teams that I've continued to work with, how intentional they've been in making sure that their communication is understood and the tone of the message is also understood as well. So thinking about some strategies, this is slide 6. thinking about some strategies for remote workers. I'm going to cover three things: the idea of individualize, communicate, and set expectations. And know that they're not exclusive at all, and it's not a do this, then that. These are all things to be thinking about as you interact with your team to make sure that they remain or even improve their cohesiveness. So slide 7 talks about individualize. And the best thing to do is just, if you don't already know, and even though times have changed a little bit, understand how everybody performs best. So I encourage you, if you haven't done so, and this is definitely something that translates when we do transition back to the office, but just ask them one at a time. Tell me about the conditions under which you best perform. So that way you can take into consideration if they're homeschooling or if they're having to share computers with their spouse or their partner that might be at home as well. Just what are those conditions? Maybe you'll find out, you know what, from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m., I'm a rock star. Usually after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm spent. I need, isolation, and I'll come to you. So just ask that question or ask that, tell me about how you best perform. The other point is then, what's on their mind? And Dr. El Kady spoke to this. It's not just about the technical components of their job and how they might be completing a task, but just what are they worried about? What are some of their concerns about this remote connectivity? What's in their emotional response? And we continue at Missouri Training Institute to check in with one another about that, and just making sure, is it a good day? Are you having a good week? What's going on? And just understanding those things. And I encourage you, lastly, continue to coach and connect as normally as possible, with the idea that we're going to improve all communication and all connectivity. So that's my idea for individualize, and make that a one-on-one connection. The second strategy then is about communicating. This is slide 8. So I would decide ahead of time, if you haven't already established some mainframe, is decide how you will communicate. What's going to be our primary form? How are we going to communicate if we have this particular need? And a lot of us, we default to email. It's easy, it's immediate, but it's not appropriate for everything. So I encourage you, don't try to solve a problem on email. If it starts to get into that type of email thread, stop, pick up the phone, or schedule a Zoom or a Skype or something where you can see that individual face to face. And because usually with problems and obstacles come emotions. And so I encourage you, get off email and definitely do something where you have more of that behavioral two-way communication. Always, then my third bullet here is always assume positive intent. It's very easy to misinterpret the tone of somebody's message. And so just knowing that you didn't wake up today and say, you know what, I'm really going to make my coworker today a living nightmare, and everything I'm going to do is for malice and, bad intentions. Nobody wakes up like that. Well, most nobody, right? None of us usually have that as a mind frame. And so assume positive intent, assume that it was, just coming from the right place. It just might not have landed so well. So assume positive intent behind everything. And I encourage you, especially if you are leading this remote team, make it easy to be your follower and send emails or post videos about your rationale, your reasoning, your intentions, your expectations. You almost have to over communicate in that regard, not just here's what I think, but here's why I think what I think. Here are the things that I took into consideration that got me to that point. So I really encourage you, you've got to be just a little bit more transparent when you're communicating those things. And as leaders, setting boundaries is important, but respond as quickly as possible. So it's not just, if you've set the boundary, hey, I've got to run an emergency, necessary trip to Walmart and grab some supplies. I will be out of pocket from 3:15 until 4:20, and be specific, but respond as quickly as possible. So that's individualize and communicate. And I've got 3 slides really thinking about setting expectations, and then just kind of turn it back over to Matt. But slide 9 talks about those expectations. And I would be very clear with these. I would not leave this up to interpretation. I wouldn't dance around the topic or the subject. I would be very clear. X is the work you should be doing. Y is the quality that work should be done to. And again, is it okay just to post it in an email, or do I need it in an attachment? What is your expectation of what it should look like? And then, of course, always discuss deadlines. So I just got off of a team meeting this morning, and we opened our calendar. I shared our screen, and I said, let's look at what's going on. When do you think that makes sense for you? Because, again, I'm an empty nester. I'm not dealing with some of those other pressures. I'm not having to share office space with anyone, around my kitchen table. But maybe there is some of that going on. So make sure that you're communicating and talking about deadlines that make sense for the whole team, and look at the calendar as a whole. The other thing is, so that's about your employee and those expectations. But I'd also, if you're still servicing customers, and maybe some of us are trying to maintain our customer base, and I would clearly communicate, this is what we're going to do to keep our customers engaged. These are the standards at which I expect that engagement to occur. And again, this is how we're going to fulfill our mission. So tie things back to the purpose, the reason your team exists, the reason your organization exists. Keep tying things back, because people are looking for that purpose, and they're looking for something to connect to. So the next slide, slide 10, is really about staying focused on outcomes, not on busyness. Nobody wants to hear your to-do list, honestly. What we want to focus on, especially with those people that we're leading, is out of that many calls or that many emails, what have you accomplished? Where are we in relation to the goal? So I really want you to focus on results, and not necessarily all of the action items just to see how busy they are. I want to know how productive they are. So be intentional about communicating those priorities. Be very clear about the behavior that you're expecting during conference calls. Do they need to be in business attire? Do they need to be in a studio-like setting? When I'm talking with clients, and I know there's video, and Whitney and I were exchanging emails yesterday, there's a certain expectation that Missouri Training Institute present in a certain way. And so I needed to be very intentional about making sure I was meeting those quality standards and expectations when talking with customers and stakeholders, such as all of you. So make sure that we're clear on what those expected behaviors are during conference calls. And we're getting better. We're talking about this will be recorded. Everybody will be on mute. I ask you to use chat only. We're going to open it up a little bit later to other types of questions, but that's exactly what I'm talking about with your team, so that we're all kind of playing by the same rules. And then the idea of when you are emailing, and this can go in communication, whatever, but really be mindful of reply all. And again, I think that's the undercurrent, that we want our bosses to know we're working. And so we're going to include them on every single email response that we have. But it really does slow down productivity. And so if the other person doesn't need to be copied in, then that's okay. Know this: if you are copied in, it's not your job to respond. You're there as a courtesy FYI. So its intended recipient was in the, who this is to. You're just copied in on it. So it's really just an FYI. But be mindful of when you're replying or replying to all, that we're not just doing it in order so our boss or our coworkers know that we're busy and that we're accessible. And then the last bullet there is about more detail. So I want to reiterate you almost have to over communicate. You have to not only tell them what you're going to tell them, but you got to tell them why you told them and what they need to be doing with what you've told them. So really, the more detail, the better at this point to promote that connectivity. Slide 11 is my last slide, content-wise, and it's about just making sure that you are communicating what you expect of them remotely. Are there office hours? Do we have certain expectations for being online? Or is it, work at your own pace and we'll connect when we can? I mean, again, that's an expectation that can be communicated if that meets what it is that we expect as an output. Maybe we do daily summaries of just the work accomplished. Again, focus on results, focus on output, not so much on here was my to-do list today, really about the accomplishment of your to-do list. And then I want to leave you with this because all of this is about relationships. And as I said earlier, they're either going to get better or they're going to get worse. And so be very cognizant of those people that you're leading, that you're working with, that's on your team. Know exactly what their life looks like now. Are they caring for children? Are they school-age children, or are they toddlers or infants, or pesky teenagers? We love them at every stage and age. Maybe they are dealing with illnesses, not only their own, but maybe they're dealing with other people in the household, or they're caring for those people. So individualize, make sure that you're communicating and even over communicating, and certainly setting and re-clarifying expectations that you have for your team. So that's really the end of my content. I do want to mention just in general on slide 12, we are providing some other webinars, and the Chamber has been wonderful in kind of partnering with us and helping us promote these as well. So I thought I'd just mention them, but we are doing a 3-session series on your emotional intelligence during tough times, and really thinking about how you can use your emotional intelligence to your benefit. That comes with the EQ assessment, so there is a fee associated with that, and you see the dates there. The other ones, we're doing kind of topic Tuesdays, and then I throw this in that we're actually doing one on a Thursday, but because we already had another previously scheduled event, but we're doing accountability, and not just for remote workers, but now that we're kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, these are very transferable skills into the workplace. So that's going to be June 18th, and then June 30th on just remaining proactive and how to do that. So those 2 webinars are free. The other one comes with an assessment, so it does have a fee. All of those can be found on our website, Missouri Training Institute. So Matt and Whitney, that's kind of the end of it for me. And if anybody has questions, of course, I'm open for that, but I can't see the chat. So you'll have to speak them to me.
We'll read them off to you. And Rae, thank you so much. That was some great information. And I really liked your graphic of the guy with the suit on top and the Hawaiian shorts on the bottom.
Yeah.
We all know that's happening, and it's fantastic. We jokingly call that the mullet attire for virtual meetings. And yes, I did just work in the word mullet in our webinar. So, so we do have a couple questions for y'all while we still have you on the line. So a couple of those questions is, it's very easy. Everybody's working from home, but it's very easy if you don't have separate space that your dining room table is now your desk and your spouse's or your partner's desk. and you hear your email dinging through. It's so very easy to check your email through around the clock, and rather than stopping at your normal time that you would if you were at a physical office somewhere. How can people work, and this is to both of you, how can people work to maintain that work-life balance whenever it's not separate any longer? It's all smashed together, if you will. If it's all mushed together in one place now, how would that work?
Sure. Well, I'll start, and then Dr. El Kady can chime in. But she addressed some of that. Establish those expectations. We have a thing. One of our teammates, she sends an email. She's usually the last to rise, but she sends the email. Good morning, and that kind of launches the day. And so we have that expectation that as soon as we see that email, it's okay to start texting or expecting responses. Some of us, I'm an early riser. It's crazy. And I'm already online, but I don't have an expectation for her to respond to me. So first of all, what are your boundaries? And make sure that you're communicating that. Make sure that your boss or your team may know, this is what I'm dealing with at home. These are going to be my office hours. If you need me outside of that hour, you probably should call me. But otherwise, I'm not going to respond past 5 p.m. or 4:30 or whatever. And just setting those boundaries and then communicating them. But here's the key, Matt. You have to live by them then.
Yeah.
Because we teach people how to treat us. And so if you say, I don't expect anybody to answer after 5, I'm not going to answer after 5, but then you do, you're just blurring the boundaries, and that's not a good example for your team.
Wonderful. Dr. El Kady, any thoughts on that also?
Well said. I mean, healthy boundaries, that is very important, even without the Corona time. You have to have, you have to have boundaries. There has to be a time when you're done with work. It increases your productivity for the next day, and it improves your mental health. I mean, I tell my trainees, unfortunately, they want to show me that they're hard workers and they're involved, and they still want to stay, respond to emails. I tell them, no emails after this time. You just walk your dog or something. That's it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. We've had another question pop. We've had another question pop up here. So, a lot of our companies are dealing with furloughed employees. Unfortunately, some of our businesses have gone through that, but they want to stay in touch with their furloughed employees to make sure that relationship, as Rae, you said, they're keeping those relationships growing. They've sent cards via snail mail, they called and text, searching for some other creative ideas. Any thoughts in that arena?
I think that's I'm sorry, this is Dr. El Kady. So I think that this is a very good question. It shows how empathic you are, how you care about those people. So whoever's already sending cards and send email, that's really wonderful. I mean, these people are going through a lot. And unfortunately, even the employers, they're going through a lot in a way that there's some guilt, there's some excessive guilt that is affecting them. So as Whitney just said, sometimes texts and emails are not enough. Sometimes just a phone call. The way they can hear your tone of voice, the way you're talking, it can make people feel that you actually do care for them, and you're really wanting things to get better, and you actually do care. This cannot be conveyed through a text message or a letter. But I mean, definitely the cards and messages, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, I love all those ideas, and I've been sending donuts to my daughter's, nursing staff and just thanking them. And I think really find out what they need. So those people, the ones that are furloughed, a couple of things I think about is not asking them to do work when they're not at work right now. And so even if it's just, hey, do you remember this client, blah, blah, and, it can build some different emotions up when you're asking them to actually do work, when you're telling them you're not getting paid for work. But I'd find out what they need, and definitely, some people are going to be like, hey, I'm good, I'll see you in 3 weeks, and that would be me, and some people are like, no, it is kind of cool. I like that. And that was special to me. So again, maybe you can individualize and deliver it how they want it.
Great advice. One last question we have for you before we wrap up is, the examples of a coworker who's been a lot more negative lately due to the stresses caused by the current conditions and situations, and everybody understands that and understands that they would be feeling stress. What is something as a team leader or a supervisor to help this individual to work, help them become the positive person that we know they are, right? How do you work through that process?
Do you want to take that, or do you want me to take that?
You can go ahead and take it.
Honestly, I would just address it. I would be candid. I would make sure this isn't in a team meeting, that it's just one-on-one. Hey, I've noticed lately, a difference in, your comments at a meeting, and then give an example. And just say, what's going on? Has something changed? Do you need something different? But I would definitely address it, but I would make it talk about the actual behavior. What are you hearing, or what did you see or not see that you expected to see? I also kind of avoid the word bad attitude. I think we cop an attitude when we hear that, but maybe you just talk about their performance or their comments, something like that, and then give an example. And then give an example of how that impacted you. So, the other day when you said, this, it kind of hurt my feelings, or, I'm trying to remain positive, and it's hard when I consistently get faced with these types of comments. So I would address it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Wonderful. Dr. El Kady, do you have any?
I would second that, definitely addressing it, but looking into the resources that you have in your facility, or resources that are available in the community. There are some, like, for example, in the university hospital, we have like life coach or psychologist on board just for employees' health, and not just physical health, but mental health as well. So if you're in a big business, look into the resources in the community, or even, for example, referral. Like Rae, you put in that slide about the seminars that you're giving. I thought they're amazing. Just things like that. Just be aware of what is available in the community, to even give them resources. Like, hey, this seminar I heard about, and it really looks cool. How about giving that a try? So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you to both of y'all so much for your time today, and for your input and your valuable information. So as we wrap up, but before we go, before we conclude the webinar, I want to mention a couple of upcoming items that our folks might be interested in. First, the divisions of our chamber, Women's Network, Epic, and Ambassadors. So the divisions of the Columbia Chamber will be hosting a special webinar opportunity with Kim Becking. Beginning on April 29th, you see the information up on your screen, the Momentum Mindset. It'll be a 3-part interactive live program. I'll be focused on helping you reduce stress, communicate, and lead more effectively, and create a momentum for what's coming up next in your business. For more information, make sure you check out our website. And then second, I also want to remind everybody to mark their calendar for our next weekly webinar. Our plan is next Thursday, April the 30th at 11 a.m. Our goal on this one is to start discussing, hopefully, what a rollout looks like and how that will look as we start coming out of our as we start coming out of the stay-at-home orders, and so what our businesses need to know about that. So again, thank you to both of our speakers for your time, and thank you for all that have joined us. We understand how challenging and difficult these last few weeks have been, and both for you personally and professionally. Please know that everyone you heard from today, the Columbia Chamber and all of our community partners are here to help you. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And as a reminder, our resource page, COVID-19 resource page at columbiamochamber.com, and where this recording will be posted as well. So with that, we appreciate everybody. Have a wonderful day, and thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.